Welcome to Tub and Tube Talk, your only talk show entirely devoted to the love of tubs and tubes. So if you love tub and tubes, this is the show for you. So if you want to understand like the coolness of listening, like what happens when you listen in any direction, it's really similar to being in the pool. And then right now, it's like I can feel my hand. I can feel the water on my hand. I can start to listen out into the water from my hand. And if I kind of relax and become still, I can start to feel waves reflecting off of my feet and waves reflecting off of the tub. And I can feel those waves moving through the water. So like my listening has, when my listening works, it actually reaches out and it becomes entangled with the entirety of the space, like a standing wave. Or like how a musician knows what all the other members of the band are gonna do because they're kind of on a rhythm together. Listening causes that same sort of unity with the space around it. And so when you're not listening at all, you might not even notice that your hand is in water, right? It doesn't feel that different. Right, so this is kind of like distracted, you're not listening. Like this is what the sense organ or the body or whatever is doing if you're not listening. It's out. And so listening is it's focus. So if you're not able to focus, or if you look at my last video, if you're really stuck on surface chatter and unable to focus, it's very hard to do much more than this. It's hard to really go into an activity. So it's like if you get stuck on the surface, like when you're stuck on the surface, that's when you don't have any real ability. And then you can only do kind of like really mundane surface level things. Is when there's like a lack of an ability to focus. And focus is simultaneously that of going into listening, of going into the thing that you need to pay attention to. So like if you're an athlete, that's your body, or you're going into the thing that's listening to what it is that you need to pay attention to in order to not be like mundane or whatever, to be high level, to perform. And so when you focus and you go into a space, the first time you might not feel anything, or there might be like an overwhelming sensation. Like imagine if this was cold, you'd only feel cold. There'd be like a pretty bad panic and stuff like that. But then if you acclimate to the space, you can start to listen. And it's like if I have my whole body and my whole head in there, like if I'm fully focused, if I'm fully underwater, if I'm fully submersed in listening, it's easier for that picture to emerge because it's an entanglement. So the more of me that's listening, the more of me entangles with all the microwaves, entangles with the water, becomes like the water. And then when that happens, you start to see, you can feel the reflections of waves bouncing off the tub and off my hands and stuff, and you can start to see out into the space. And that's called water feel. Like that's the difference between a good swimmer and a bad swimmer. It's just the water feel. There's nothing else that determines swimming skill besides water feel. And then it's done with with the whole body. So that's why it's like such a full body activity. The guys that are good at it are listening with their entire body. And then that's what gives you like a catch, or just the intuition to swim with the entire body. There is no, you're propelling yourself in the water with the entire body all the time because you're listening all the time. And then in a swimming competition, you induce such huge waves into the water that like even sort of deaf people can like hear the water. Like when you're kicking really hard or you're like pulling and making these big waves, that makes it so that you can hear what the water's doing and then press off of it. So anybody can swim once they start making enough waves, but if you get really good and you're just able to listen, you can start to feel waves that like, you see how the surface is kind of moving? That's going on underneath the water too. Those waves are like echoing through the water and you can't see those. Like you can't see those, you have to listen for them. All this stuff that's happening here is like sense world stuff. This is like sense world stuff. And then underneath that, there's like all of that same stuff is happening, but like kind of in 3 dimensions. And like this wave is popping up over here because it's bouncing and echoing and all that. And then the more you listen, the more you can, catch and pull on this medium, up to and including like doing surface level stuff. And that's seen as talent or skill. But the listening is the entanglement with the art or the activity. So it's like my whole body starts jiggling exactly like the tub. That's basically what happens is like I learned, listening, you totally relax. And then just like the water's moving around, you start to move around with like exactly like it. And then once that happens, then you start to see a 3-dimensional picture of the space around you because it's all one object. So once you start moving exactly like the water's moving, you perceive the entirety of the space as a single object. And then you're able to manipulate the entirety of the space as a single object. So that's what people are doing with their imagination, with visual arts, with like whatever. And the reason that applies to like everything, like every activity follows this metaphor, is because consciousness is water. Like all the perceptions are happening in awareness, right? So then if you look at that scientifically, all the perceptions are happening in the metabolism of the body. The metabolism of the body is entirely submerged in water. So all perception is entirely enveloped in water. And then another way of saying that is that it's entirely enveloped in awareness.